Greetings, Stephen, technical director here at Strange Times Indeed, and greetings and welcome to all of you viewing at home, none of you tonight, tuning in for the hot button topic, the big question, who killed Marilyn? Now, we've got some breaking news off the top, yes, in case you were wondering, in case you weren't entirely sure what show this is. You're watching Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister. And I, of course, am your host, Cliff McCallister, the Czar of the Bizarre. Every week on this show, we examine the paranormal, the unexplained, the unknowable mysteries of the universe. But this week, we're taking a little dip into the world of true crime, and we are exploring and perhaps exploiting the great question of who killed Marilyn. But before we get to that, we've got some breaking news off the top. Some incredible news coming out of the world today, coming out of outer space. That's right, outer space. Big news here. No, not this one, not this outer space news. This first news story. Proof, undeniable proof from the NASA, the government, of extraterrestrial life on the planet Venus. Yes, Venusians, as they are said to be called. Researchers have spotted phosphine in the atmosphere of Venus. Phosphine, a rare toxic gas that comes from neighboring planets. And this whole thing, this gas, is a gas that is emitted from the corpses of rotting fish and dead things and our own asses. And it's clouding the atmosphere in Venus. A planet filled with farts. Extraterrestrial farts. Incredible finds, incredible things. Now we're going to transition now out of the world of outer space and into our next story. Ghost sightings in Gettysburg. Stephen, let's bring up this footage. This is footage coming out of Gettysburg, the Civil War battlefield. A man's driving through it. You can see the Civil War tanks right there on the side. The little cannons. And can we play that video, Stephen? It's playing. It's just not moving on my screen. All right, well, we're trying to play this ghost footage. What you will see, this is big national news. Many viewers tipped me off to this one, where you can see footage as this car drives down the road of a mysterious kind of blip, a spirit passing in front of the cannons there. We are giving it a try, Spangler. We are working on getting that footage up and rolling. Here we go. This is some high-tech stuff we've got here. Nope, doesn't appear to be. Let's move on to our next news story. Our next news story right off the top here. It's Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister. You will not believe the sights over New Jersey this week. Look at this one we got. Let's give this one a play. Now look at this spacecraft flying over the state of New Jersey in the United States of America. As you can see there, cars stopped along the highway to see this thing, to watch as it hovers over the city, and then wowza, whoa, let's scroll past that, please. There are children watching this show. Here we go. All right, now more footage out of New Jersey of this mysterious spacecraft. Now, there are some skeptics out there who say this is nothing more than a Goodyear blimp. Well, we've heard that one before here at Strange Times Indeed. Whereas you may remember the Roswell incident. Oh, it was only a weather balloon, they said. Oh, it's only a blimp? What is a blimp if not a fancy weather balloon? Well, we're not buying the lie this time. Something was sighted over New Jersey. And here's Strange Times Indeed. If you witnessed this spacecraft, if you know that it was no Goodyear blimp, call in tonight. Call in, and we will, not tonight specifically, because tonight we're dissecting who killed Marilyn Monroe. We're going to do that right after a break. Steven, can you roll some footage? Roll the commercial break.
Hello. We are the Comedy Pigs. We're practicing a game we call Scenes from a Hat. Wrong things to say at a eulogy.
I am so gonna miss Mr. I'm just gonna really miss this guy here. He's a good guy.
He just borrowed like $100 from me like Thursday, so just wondering who's gonna pay now that he's dead.
Things you can shout at a football game, but not in bed.
Whoa, you could have drove a dump truck through that gap.
Yeah, we're dealing with a bunch of overpaid prima donnas here.
Man, his brother and his dad are way better at doing that than he is.
Hi.
See you at the show.
Right. Thank
See you at the shows.
Comedy Pigs.
Thank you, Comedy Pigs.
Bye.
Goodbye, Comedy
Thank
Pigs.
you. Watching at home. With Cliff McCallister. I, of course, am your host, Cliff McCallister, the czar of the bizarre. Steven, we can take the UFO footage down. It's still going. Oh. Well, there it is. Footage from before.
Yeah, there was one more whole video of this particular UFO.
Yes, well, there it is. A UFO over New Jersey. Some naysayers believe it to be the Goodyear blimp. But this thing had thousands of sightings, and if you witnessed it, we want to hear from you. Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister. You say, I saw that extraterrestrial craft, and that was no blimp. Feel free to call in and tell us about what you witnessed, but call in next week, because this week we are getting into part 1 of our bi-weekly 4-part series, Who Killed Marilyn? That's right, we're dipping our toe into the world of true crime. And we will be sharing information gleaned from this book with you. And then we'll be taking your calls to hear your theories about what you think and who you think killed Marilyn Monroe. Now let's start at the beginning. And no better place to begin a story than the end. The bitter end. The death scene. August 4th, 1962. Now, this is an excerpt from the book Who Killed Marilyn? A part of the book so important to the first person who got this book, who owned this book before me, made a special note of this segment. And this is as follows. This is why we're starting with the evidence found at the death scene. None of the 8 persons who were known or claimed to be involved with the last 12 hours of Marilyn's life has ever been asked questions under oath with the threat of perjury hanging over them. All their statements, what they said immediately after Marilyn's death, what they've said since, and what they're saying now, weave a web of contradictions. Now let's examine the evidence of that night. 1.5 months before I was born. Well, happy almost birthday to you, sir. 1.5 months before you were born? Well, if I had to gather to say, barefoot and 52, born 1.5 months before after 1.5 months after Marilyn Monroe was murdered? Well, I'd wager to say you probably have a birthday sometime where? In the next 24 hours. So congratulations to you, sir. And we will move on to examine the death scene here. Now, this whole death scene filled with contradictions, filled with all sorts of mix-em-ups, things that just don't add up to anyone who's truly been paying attention. Now, that night, Mrs. Murray, Marilyn's nurse/housekeeper, initially discovers Marilyn's body a little after midnight. She shares this information with Sergeant Jack Clements, the first officer to arrive at the scene, though this officer does not show up until 4:25 in the morning. Why is that? If she discovers the body at midnight, why are we not talking to the police until 4:25? There's a 4-hour time gap there. And you're probably wondering what happened in that time gap? Well, here's an excerpt from Who Killed Marilyn by Tony Sciacca that breaks down what was happening during those 4 hours. Marilyn did not sit in her bedroom, forcing down pills, drinking knockout drops, and then stretch out on her crumpled sheets to die. Someone she trusted probably injected a massive fatal dose of barbiturates into her body and then abandoned her. And when her nurse/housekeeper discovered something was wrong with Marilyn around midnight on that summer weekend in 1962 and called for help, it was too late. Marilyn was dead. And then, for 4 hours, agents of the Kennedy government, either CIA or Justice Department men, went through Marilyn's house to remove all evidence she had ever been intimate with the President of the United States and his brother, the Attorney General of the United States. Those federal agents created a stage setting in Marilyn's bedroom that would help the Los Angeles Police Department, a man who was hoping to become, the Los Angeles Police Chief, a man who was hoping to become director of the FBI after the Kennedys got rid of J. Edgar Hoover, confect a verdict of suicide. Now, this is very troubling things, and I do want to say right off the top, as we explore this, a potential trigger warning for you, there are discussions of suicide and murder, grisly, unfortunate things related to this case that will be brought up at times throughout this investigation. So if that does not sit well with you, if that is a troubling thing to hear about, feel free to skip these episodes. So keep that in mind as we travel further into the case. Now, around 4:25, Sergeant Clements arrives and he questions Mrs. Murray and the doctors who are there. Now, they say they arrived around 12:30 and pronounce Marilyn dead at the scene. But when investigating, detectives take over the case from Sergeant Clements. The official report changes, stating that the death was pronounced at 3:35 a.m. rather than the 12:30 time that the doctors and Mrs. Murray had initially told Sergeant Clements, the first to arrive at the scene. And the first official police report notes that Mrs. Murray discovered that Marilyn's bedroom door was locked at 3:30 a.m. So she called Marilyn's physicist, her psychiatrist, and her physician, who both lived in Beverly Hills. Her psychiatrist, Dr. Greenson, arrives first, breaks Marilyn's bedroom window, and discovers her body, pronouncing her possibly dead. Now, of course, he pronounces her possibly dead because how can a psychiatrist truly know if someone is dead? Then the physician arrives at 3:35 a.m., and he pronounces her officially dead on the spot. Now, let's look at the timing here. Let's look at the timing of this story alone. Now, this was in the official police report, which already differs from what these three had told Sergeant Clements when he arrived. The story has already been altered to account for this 4-hour time gap in which the FBI and the CIA agents were cleaning out this room to make it look as if a murder had never occurred. All the papers had to say was that Marilyn was found in the nude. Yes, that is a harsh fact. This is coming from Barefoot and 52. A quote about this case: all the papers had to say was that Marilyn was found in the nude. Yes, unfortunate the way the tabloids treated Marilyn Monroe. Now, getting back to the case, let's look at the timing here, because this is where things start to get messy, where they don't add up. So let's say that Mrs. Murray calls Dr. Greenson first. He is, after all, the first to arrive. He's the one who breaks in the window, so she must have gotten in touch with him first, as soon as she noticed something was wrong with Marilyn. Perhaps she's a bit panicked, but she gets to the phone. She runs there. By now, it's probably, 3:30 and 30 seconds. She gets to the phone. She dials it in. She might have to dial twice because she's so frantic over whatever is happening to Miss Monroe in there that another 30 seconds or so go by. Eventually, she gets the call going. She gets on very groggily. Dr. Greenson stirs in his slumber. He wakes up. He's a psychiatrist, so he's probably doesn't have a bedside phone. He gets up. He walks into the other room. He goes, "Who could be calling me at this hour?" He picks it up. "Hello, hello. I'm trying to sleep over here." And on the other side of the phone, on the other side, this panicked woman, Mrs. Murray, is, "Oh, please, 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 something's wrong with Marilyn, something, help, 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 help." And he groggily, I mean, remember, it's 3:30 in the morning. This man isn't ready to move about the house. He has to snap into it. It takes a while. By now, it's probably 3:31, maybe 3:32, and he has to get from his Beverly Hills home to Brentwood, California. Now, maybe some of you viewers, we are a public show here in Frederick, Maryland, so I don't know how many of our viewers are familiar with the span of distance between Beverly Hills and Brentwood, but that's at least a 20-minute drive. A 20-minute drive, and you're telling me that this man left his home around 3:32? Around 3:32 in the morning, he leaves his home and drives a 20-minute drive just in time to arrive at 3:35? You cannot make that kind of distance. You cannot drive a car that fast in 1963. So something doesn't add up here. How does he get there so quick? We're talking a 5-minute time span. Now, I don't think these psychiatrists, I'm not sure the people working with Marilyn have these magic powers of teleportation, although when you think about it, this book, in the very beginning, notes that Marilyn herself had a psychic musk, and she is described at another point as being a cosmic woman. Perhaps Marilyn Monroe was not of this world at all, but an extraterrestrial, being kept on this planet by other extraterrestrial forces capable of moving from Beverly Hills to Brenton in the span of 4 minutes. But whether or not that's the case, what is very clear is that something happened and somebody murdered Marilyn Monroe, human or not. And we're going to figure out what the deal is during this bi-weekly 4-part series. Now, if you're watching the clock closely, you will find that this doctor, Dr. Greenson, probably arrived closer to 3:50 or so, far before the initial time that was reported. Now, the first official police report notes that Mrs. Murray discovered Marilyn's bedroom door locked. Oh, I read that part already. Sorry, sometimes you just gotta scroll on the page. Beam me up to Marilyn, Scotty. Well, there it is, right there in the comments. Beam me up to Marilyn. Is that a dirty, filthy comment about this American sex pot? We will not have that kind of crude language in the chat. We have nothing but respect for Marilyn Monroe here, and that's why we're bringing this book to the fore. We will find out just how respectful she was. And why? Anyway, let's examine the timing here. Dun, 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 dun. So many notes in one page. Aliens, that's right. That's right, TCon 1116. Is it possible that Marilyn Monroe, herself a cosmic woman with a psychic musk, an extraterrestrial celebrity, a space-age sex pot, a sex goddess as the book describes, perhaps one of the ancient goddesses? That's how Doctor got there so fast. That's right. Now, these events eventually change in a follow-up report. They report that Dr. Greenson arrived first around 3:40, and the second doctor, the physician, Dr. Engelberg, around 3:50. But why change the story? Why all the contradictions? What reason would these doctors have to tell Sergeant Clemens that they arrived after midnight and then tell investigators they didn't arrive until 3:35 and further alter the story? Well, here's the thing. They lied because Marilyn was murdered. That's right. Who murdered Marilyn? Who killed Marilyn? Tonight on Strange Times Indeed. Now, we described earlier how the FBI had raided the scene, how they had killed Marilyn and then flopped her body around to make it look like some kind of, like it was an accident, like it was a suicide, and remove all evidence that she had ever slept with the president. Well, this is what Sergeant Jack Clemens said when he arrived at the scene. Not when he arrived, but describing the scene later. This is the officer who got there first. This is the officer who, when he arrived at 4:25 in the morning, was told by Mrs. Murray and the other doctors that they found Marilyn dead at 12:30 a.m. He was the one who heard the first version of the story before it was altered, before it was changed by the CIA to cover up this murder, or changed by extraterrestrial forces. The jury is still out. We're only 2 chapters into the book, after all. This is like a bit of a book club. And if you follow me on Strange Times Indeed, on Instagram, our new Instagram page, just at Strange Times Indeed, I've been reading each chapter in full. So you can hear chapter 1, you can hear chapter 2. And if you follow me there, we'll be catching up. And we'll be doing chapter 3, chapter 4 as we prepare for the next installment of this series. But we're not even done yet. This is what the officer, Jack Clemens, said about the scene. He said, "It appeared to me that the scene had been arranged," he says. "Her legs were completely parallel. They looked just what she was. She looked like just what she was. A dead body put into that position. In deaths from barbiturates in the last minutes before consciousness is lost, there is pain and there is contortion." Now, nobody paid any attention to Sergeant Jack Clemens. No one paid any attention to him. In fact, he was ordered by his superiors to go along with the official verdict that it was a suicide. Clemens.
Hey, wait. Thank you, CT Dolson, for the follow. Pew,
Oh,
pew,
well,
pew,
thank you,
pew.
CT Dolson, for the follow. We'll get back to that. We're still reading here. Clemens, okay, hold on.
TCon 1116. Thanks for the follow.
TCon 1116. Thank you for following. Thank you for following Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister, or more so, Met Comedy Night. Here at twitch.tv/Met Comedy Night, we're exploring who killed Marilyn tonight. We're just reading about Jack Clemens, the first officer at the scene who heard the first version of the story. Yes, he said that he was forced to leave the police department, and he still demands to know, why did the doctors tell him that they arrived at Marilyn's house around 12:30, but later told investigating detectives that it was 3:30? Forget the missing time from before. Why did they lie at all? Why did they change their story from 12 to 3? To account for the time the CIA was in the room, to account for the time Kennedy's hitmen could have been cleaning it up, for time in which extraterrestrial forces may have been getting rid of any evidence that Marilyn was not of this planet. My God, didn't know if I get a shout out. I'd like to thank my mom and also Bourbon. Well, hey, thanks to you. Thanks to your mom, C.T. Dolson. Thanks to you and T-Con who have subscribed, who are following us here. Now let's get back into this groove. We're figuring out who killed Marilyn. That was his description of the scene. Incredible stuff. We are, of course, taking calls as we do every night. Now, this is just based on the information that we've shared so far, based on the contradictions that we've heard from those at the scene, and the words from the first officer at the scene, Jack Clemens. We want to hear from you. If you have any theories at this point as to who killed Marilyn, please call in. We've got the Zoom link in the chat. If you have any pressing theories, any ideas about what might have happened here, please call in. And this is just the beginning. This is just information from chapter 1. Just examining the death scene. I'll tell you something else about the death scene. I see we've got someone in the waiting room. Oh, we must have a theory. Let's go ahead and admit them in. Let's hear what we've got. Yeah, coming in here in relation to Clarence Clemens. Well, I'm not sure. I don't believe so because Officer Jack Clemens had 2 M's in his name. Hello? Are you? I think we've got somebody on, Steven. I'm just seeing me. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I hear ya. Do we have your permission to bring your visitors up on the screen?
Yes, thank you.
All right. And this is Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister. I, of course, am Cliff McCallister. Who may I ask is calling?
Hello, this is C.T. Dolson of Following fame.
Oh, welcome, C.T. Dolson, and you're the new follower. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me here. I think I have more a question than I do any kind of comment or evidence to submit.
Of course.
Yes. I was just wondering as to Marilyn's background in terms of her relation to the presidential lineage of Monroe in general.
Whoa, now that is a good question.
And whether or not her lineage of like our longer term of U.S. history has anything in the larger sense beyond just her own alien experience, if there are more aliens involved and more U.S. history than we have been led on to know as of now.
Well, I do believe if Marilyn Monroe were truly a cosmic woman, with a psychic musk, an extraterrestrial, a space-age sex pot, why, tracking back, if her last name is Monroe and President Monroe's last name is Monroe, why, there's no reason to believe they weren't related. Which absolutely means that he himself, a space-age sex-pot president, because you know all the aliens are sexy, at least from her planet. So
that's just a fact.
People always say that James Monroe. Look, I try not to use this kind of language on the show. If there are children watching, here's a little thing about James Monroe. But people say he was the most fuckable president.
Many have said that throughout, and I wonder if there is some sort of like alien shadow state that has governed all of American history.
That's very possible. They could all be extraterrestrials, and I believe that he himself, sexpot James Monroe, the president, carried on his extraterrestrial lineage through to Marilyn Monroe. It only tracks that our extraterrestrial history goes further back than that.
Certainly, it would make sense if this was some kind of imperial alien race that was already trying to make it in, given his Monroe Doctrine, trying to expand the U.S., reign in all parts of the world. They're just trying to take over. It adds up to me.
Oh, now hold on. Here's an important thing. It looks like we might have broken the chain. An important note coming in from the chat. I can't believe we didn't even think of this. Oh, foolish of me, foolish of me. Marilyn Monroe, only a stage name. Her real name Norma Jean Baker we have in the chat. Of course, we respect Marilyn Monroe on this show, and if she chooses to be Marilyn, that's what we call her.
Well, while you were talking, I actually looked this up.
Yes.
So really, for one reason or another, even if it is a stage name, a lot of people have Googled it, and it says new DNA evidence proves beyond doubt that Marilyn Monroe had Scottish roots and was descendant from the famous Monroe clan. And then it later goes on to say that although rumors have floated around that Marilyn Monroe was related to the 5th U.S. President James Monroe, this has never been conclusively proven. So they actually tried to prove it. And although it may be hard to imagine, Marilyn Monroe is said to have felt that Lincoln was the famous American most like her.
Most like her or related to her?
It says most like her, but maybe we could speculate that she was related to Lincoln. What was her real last name,
Or that she just believed in equal rights for people and would have freed the slaves if she had a chance.
Perhaps so. That was a little tidbit. And another thing I would like to say, why stop at the aliens only adjusted American history? They adjusted world history, right?
That's very possible, but a theory we'll have to get into on a later episode.
Yes. Back to you.
Now,
Do you think that in this chosen name of Monroe, that perhaps the killing of Marilyn Monroe was done by her own kind? And I do want to make room for other callers, so I will make my leave here, but I can leave you with that thought.
Before you leave, if you had to answer right now, who killed Marilyn?
Governor Hogan.
That bloodthirsty animal. C.T. Dolson, thank you for calling. Now, Governor Hogan, a troubling man, a very violent, vicious person who has been known to gnaw the heads off of raccoons, to just devour their bodies in the alleyways of Frederick, Maryland. We covered this on a past show. This man, an absolute monster with an insatiable lust for blood. Governor Larry Hogan. A troubling and sick man. I hope he gets the help that he needs. All right, well, Stephen, let's go ahead. There was a question there at the end, wasn't it? I shouldn't have let him go. I really had to know I had to know who he thought killed Marilyn Monroe. I missed the question entirely. No, but he took a question. He said he took a question and he was going to take it off the air. He was going to take the answer off the air. He would have been 6 years old. He would have been 6 years old. Hey, well, here's the thing. There are families in the mix here. The murder of Marilyn Monroe, it's hard to say who exactly did it, but here's the cold truth. She wove a web of a life, going in and out of other people's lives. A bit of the old in, out, as this book would have you sell. And so it's very possible that somebody as young as 6 years old could have been caught up in this mix, could have had a vendetta against Miss Marilyn Monroe. Did aliens kill her? It's possible. Perhaps she was getting ready to reveal things before even the extraterrestrials were prepared for their knowledge, their existence to go public. But in pursuit of better roles, no more playing the dumb blonde, Cosmic Woman Marilyn Monroe, sick of being cornered, treated as a dumb human woman, was ready to reveal her extraterrestrial roots to the world, to say, I demand smarter roles. I demand to be treated with respect. I am an extraterrestrial of greater power than you could imagine. And maybe that just didn't suit the extraterrestrial's purpose. Perhaps she was going to blow the long con in her quest for stardom. We'll talk about that and more after the break. Here on Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister, we will be back very soon to discuss the life itself of Marilyn Monroe, and if we can do it real quick, we might take some dream interpretation from our own Stephen Craig. You see what he has been dreaming about lately and what it means. That's coming up after the break. Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister. I, of course, am Cliff McCallister. Stay strange, terrestrials. Life inside during the pandemic getting you down? Worried that there's nothing you can do to pass the time? No laughs left to be had? All gone crazy? Well, bam! Guess what? Met Comedy Night is coming to Twitch. Heck, it's there right now, and you can join us every week with shows from the Comedy Pigs, Oh Crit, Strange Times Indeed, Over the Hump, and more. That's right, follow us on twitch.tv/MetComedyNight for all the laughter you need. Oh God, I don't think I can do this anymore. Oh, he's biting my butt. He's biting my, oh God, that's my hand, oh my gosh, Welcome back to Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister. I, of course, am your host, Cliff McCallister. Tonight, we are going our bi-weekly 4-part series, Who Killed Marilyn? Now, speaking of bi-weekly 4-part series about women, the Marilyn Ensemble Theater, the theater with which this show is dedicated to because they have the guts to put us on the air, they're starting their own bi-weekly 4-part series. It's called Victory is Within Our Grasp. Monologues from the suffrage movement. As you may know, 100 years ago this year, the 19th Amendment was ratified, and if you go to marylandensemble.org/victory, you can pre-order the first episode of this 4-part series. Each episode only $6. So you watch all 4, that's about the price of a regular theater ticket. That's a great way you can support the theater, get some content, learn more about women as we are doing tonight with Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister, talking about Who Killed Marilyn. Now, coming up on the Met Comedy Night Twitch here, for those of us, our new followers tonight, T-Con, CT Dolson, it's not just Strange Times Indeed here, baby. We've got other shows. Tune in tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. The Comedy Pigs will be performing live here for some short-form improv, and they need your suggestions. Don't forget to tune in the Friday after that. We've got Oh Crit. They're going to be doing their improvised D&D show. And Wednesday at 10 a.m., we've got Over the Hump with our own Stephen Craig. That's his morning show. Stephen, come on out here.
Hey, Cliff.
In tonight.
Hi, I got a microphone tonight, Cliff.
Oh, classy. I'm very proud of this accomplishment on your end. Stephen, we've been doing with you on the show. You're our technical director, and we have been doing dream interpretation. Because you have taught yourself to lucid dream, and I, as the host of Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister, do not only take calls from people on the show to hear about their unexplained encounters, but I also offer dream interpretation, a modern-day Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And Stephen, you've had so many dreams.
Yeah, I would like to say, I mean, I feel like I'm still training myself to lucid dream. There have been a very small, I could probably count on one hand how many times I've done it. And then this is a dream journal I had from 6 years ago that we're interpreting. So we've not been interpreting any fresh dreams, although I've been more aware of them recently and been able to remember them again recently, and I'm back on the train of actively pursuing my lucid dreams. But I have one. Yeah.
You have one for tonight.
Yeah. I have one that I read some, and I wrote backlogged on several dreams. So I remembered several dreams that I backlogged.
All right.
And this is somewhere in April or May of 2014. Right. Oh no, I dropped my book.
Oh no.
Okay.
We're going to hear Stephen's dream tonight on Strange Times Indeed, and I will be offering interpretation. For those of you just joining us, Stephen, tell us that dream.
I dreamt that I saw Alex Muller, Joe Suthers, and Kevin Gawler walking as I was on a balcony. I yelled for them, and they looked, but they didn't recognize me. I got upset, and then all of a sudden they said, Stephen Craig. And I was like, yeah. Later, AJ and I were running errands before work. I stopped by one place and checked up on receiving circus work part-time and saw some friends and had some drinks. Alex Mueller came up and apologized for not recognizing me. He said it was because of the camo shorts. So I tried to tell him I wore them because of Bike Week, but I couldn't talk. He was also a president and another dream of mine. So
This
and
Alex was the president, you said?
yeah, Alex, Joe, and Kevin, the people who didn't recognize me, were my best friends in my early years of high school. And then AJ is my brother. So it's...
Well, what I wonder... So, a question for you in your own life. Did you have this dream before or after you joined the circus?
Before. This was...
Perhaps
a year and a half before I joined the circus, but I mean, I'd done some circus work before. I was a juggler and everything.
Well, what I find very interesting about this dream, Stephen, is that it ties in almost perfectly with Marilyn Monroe. Yes. Pretty surprising, huh? But here's the thing about you, and here's the thing about this Marilyn Monroe. Fame. Now, she went out in the pursuit of fame. You're checking the radio. You're trying to get gigs, working at the circus. Now, Marilyn Monroe develops an alternate personality. She's not just Norma Jean. She's Marilyn Monroe. In essence, almost two people. The normal Norma Jean and Marilyn Monroe. Well, Stephen Craig, you're out there. Sometimes you put on your camo shorts. Why did you wear camo shirts during Bike Week? Is it funny to do that, or?
Well, I think that Bike Week there would be more patriotic people around, and I had camo shorts, and I was trying to fit in with that crowd.
All right, you're trying to assimilate. You're trying to assimilate as a member of the Hollywood elite there. And in pursuing that fame, your own friends do not recognize you.
Yeah, that's the interesting part of it, is
person.
Me trying to get circus work and wearing these camo shorts I don't normally wear could be tied into why they didn't recognize me from afar when I was up on a balcony.
Yes, and almost in a way, because you're wearing the camo shorts, one could be said that you're playing dumb. And that's what Marilyn did throughout her entire career.
What's Steve's real name?
Yes, perhaps it's Marilyn Monroe. Are you, Stephen Craig, are you Marilyn Monroe? Or are you Norma Jean? Which one are you talking to us right now?
Wow. Yeah, I guess in that aspect, I wouldn't know if in the dream my real name was Stephen Craig.
Yes. So perhaps you were two different people. And it took them a moment to recognize you because you're performing. Just like Marilyn Monroe.
Wowee.
Yeah. Some powerful commentary there on the world of theater, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm thankful that you were on this other case that informed you. Creven Steg. Yeah, that could have been the alter ego. In the dream, I was either becoming Creven Steg or I was Creven Steg, so it was hard for them to recognize Stephen Craig.
Possibly Creven Steg.
Yeah. Well,
Creven, thank you for sharing your dream with us tonight. It's just fascinating the way it ties in with our exploration as to who killed Marilyn. Now,
was
here's
I
one
nude
final
in the
question
dream?
the chat. Were you nude in the dream like Marilyn was nude when she was found, or when she took those calendar photos we'll talk about in a minute?
Well, I was at least wearing camo shorts, but I only specified that I was wearing camo shorts. And I did not specify how I was wearing those shorts either. So I could have just been wearing them on my head.
Very possible. Stephen, thank you so much for sharing your dreams with us
Thank you,
tonight.
Cliff. Thanks for helping to interpret.
Of course, just fascinating, another modern Marilyn Monroe. Perhaps, Stephen, perhaps you've got the psychic musk yourself. Now tonight, moving on, we are going to start getting into chapter 2. We just talked there about the beginning, what we know about the death of Marilyn Monroe, but now we've got to know who killed her. We must discover motive. We must find the reasoning behind her murder, and that's where we start getting into it with chapter 2. We talk a bit about her life story and the myth of the poor dumb blonde. Now, yes, much like we discussed with Stephen, a great example of two different personalities. This book, Who Killed Marilyn, posits one very important thing about Marilyn, is that, and this is from the book, Marilyn was not a misused and abused little orphan forced into the role of sex sirens for the benefit of the studio bosses who reaped big bucks from her films. She was a cunning, ambitious woman who exploited people and situations to get what she wanted. She used others at least as often as she herself was used. That's right, Marilyn Monroe, a much smarter woman than people believed her to be, or than she even let on. An example of this, early on in her career, she had done a nude calendar shoot. Pretty spicy, huh? Well, here's what happens. The news starts to get out, and she's talking to a business friend of hers. And they realize that it could be good publicity for Marilyn Monroe, the sexiest woman in Hollywood, to have a nude photo come out. And so she goes and she interviews this reporter, and they say, you go talk to this reporter, tell her about the movie you're currently doing. We'll set it up through the studios, so they'll think it's a normal movie interview. Yes, Spangler is very upset right now, trying to get out of the room, just crying at the door. My good boy. Oh my goodness. Hold on 1 second. I might need to run him downstairs.
We'll roll the animation.
Yes, let's go ahead. We'll roll the animation. We'll be back talking about Marilyn Monroe and who murdered her here on Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister. We'll be right back.
Cliff! Cliff! I hope there's not a chupacabra over there. Spangler is a survivor of a chupacabra attack, so... Are you okay, Cliff? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you see the chat? Oh, hey, Cliff!
Yes, as you might recall, before I disappeared, I did have to take the cat downstairs. He was just a little too fussy.
No chupacabras?
No. I mean, it's possible there were some in the area, and he sensed them psychically. He's a very smart boy. Choopy cobbler sound amazing. Yes. Now, who killed Marilyn? We're going to get into it. Who might have the motive to murder Marilyn? Now, we were talking about these salacious nude photos and what had happened at that time. The way that she had broke the news to this reporter. The myth of the poor dumb blonde. And what she did is she's talking to this reporter. She talks about the movie. And when the reporter finishes the interview, Marilyn says, "Can I talk to you about something confidentially?" The reporter says, "Sure," because she's a liar. And Marilyn says, "I took these nude photo shoots when my career was beginning. What should I do about them?" And this reporter turns the news story, this whole thing, into this scandalous report about how she had done this news story. They knew this reporter would pull a move like this. They knew she couldn't be trusted. They wanted to get that out because it'd be hot publicity for Marilyn. Just the way that she kind of gamed the system, the way that she played people, manipulated them to work right into her hands. So we're going to look at some of the people in her life here and see if we can discover a motive as to who killed Marilyn. Oh, I will be... Steven, can you roll the animation one more time? We are back. A crazy night here at Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister, and we are exploring who might have killed Marilyn. We're going to look into the motives of the people. We talked about the death scene earlier, but now it's time to talk about the people who may have been involved. Now, as far as I can count, I think there are anywhere between 4 to 10 or 12 suspects. But here are the main 4. The Kennedys, which could be 5 to 10 people on its own. Joe DiMaggio, Arthur Miller, and the family of Johnny Hyde. Now let's start with the obvious group. Here we are, the Kennedys. What was Marilyn's relation to the Kennedys? Well, here's how the book begins. This is going back to chapter 1. But it's a crucial element to the story, I believe. This is right here at the beginning of the book, nearly. And she died of an overdose of barbiturates. And she was murdered. There can be no doubt about it. And in some way, impossible to understand with precision, the Kennedy family was involved in that murder. We didn't realize it back then, but both John and Robert Kennedy had been her lovers. John first. There were the innuendos about that affair when Marilyn sang at JFK's 45th birthday party in Madison Square Garden. Wearing a form-fitting sheer dress studded with thousands of sequins, she sang, "Happy birthday, dear President." Later that night, she shared his bed as she often had in past months. And apparently, after the president permitted caution and political realities to overtake his almost insatiable need for a woman like her, Robert took John's place, and Marilyn focused her energies on the younger Kennedy brother. That's right, Bobby Kennedy. Now, the thing about Bobby Kennedy, not only did John F. Kennedy have Jackie Onassis by his side, but Bobby Kennedy also had a wife and several children, but he also had debt to the Catholic Church and enormous political ambition. But debt to the Catholic Church? Is it possible the Catholics murdered Marilyn Monroe? Perhaps she was levied off as a threat to Bobby Kennedy to say, if you don't pay your tithing, if you don't tithe properly, we took Marilyn away from you. Just think about what else we can take. Could that be the direction that this took? Could it have been the wife of Bobby Kennedy murdering Marilyn because she found out he was with Bobby Kennedy? Could it have been the children for love of their father, knowing that Marilyn Monroe was no good for Bobby? And the kids could see that, so perhaps the kids took over? And what about Jackie O? A. Kennedy, though not by her, well, I guess by her last name after she got married, but not by blood. And John F. Kennedy, still alive at this time, a likely culprit as well. Going down the list, we've got Joe DiMaggio, a man who completely disappeared from public after Marilyn Monroe was murdered. You know the lyric, "Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio?" Written 5 years after the murder by Simon and Garfunkel. Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? Are you hiding because you murdered Marilyn Monroe? And he would have motive. Here's the thing about Joe DiMaggio. He was so in love with Marilyn, and she was so in love with him, They go on a extended honeymoon after their wonderful wedding. And they come back. They have a nice meeting with Mr. Skolsky, one of her agents at the time, and he says to her, Joe DiMaggio goes, he plays basketball with the boys for a bit, or baseball with the boys. And Marilyn says to her friend, she says, you know who I'm going to marry? I'm going to marry Arthur Miller. That's right, playwright Arthur Miller. And so she sabotages her own wedding, her own marriage to Joe DiMaggio, throws it down the drain to be with Arthur Miller. Why? So that she can be a respected actress, getting smart roles written by a smart New York playwright, and she does just that. Would Joe DiMaggio not be so scorned that he himself could murder Marilyn? And Arthur Miller, a potential murderer himself. Why? Well, because Marilyn did the same thing with Arthur Miller as she did with Joe DiMaggio. She flirts around on set with other men. Arthur Miller sees this whole thing, and here's the thing about Arthur Miller, writer of The Crucible, for God's sakes. This is a man who will not be messed with. This is a man who stood in front of the House of Un-American Activities to prove that he was not some kind of communist, even though Lord knows he probably was. And that's what makes him so damn cool. But here's the unfortunate thing. She's flirting around with these other guys on set. It's upsetting him. It's making it difficult for Arthur Miller to stay married to Marilyn, but here's where the straw really breaks the camel's back. Marilyn nails this hot role in a film called Let's Make Love. And at the start of the production, the producer was delighted to meet Arthur Miller, the famous playwright and winner of both the Pulitzer Prize and the New York Drama Critics Award. Walt always called him Mr. Miller, even when having dinner with him at their home. As Let's Make Love was nearing completion, the Writers Guild called a strike. There were problems with the script, and several scenes needed to be rewritten. Because of the strike, no one could be found to do revisions, and Marilyn was faced with the prospect of not being able to finish the film. Walt asked Miller to ignore the strike and rewrite the final scene in the script. He did it for his wife. In the beginning of their relationship, Arthur Miller was a towering figure, almost larger than life, whom Marilyn looked up to in awe. And now he descended from his lofty position as eminent playwright, abandoned his principle to, in essence, break a strike like a scab, and stooped to doctor his wife's movie script. And that set in motion the conflicts that would ultimately destroy their marriage. She took a man as proud and as pro-union as Arthur Miller and turned him into a scab. Now, is that not reason to murder someone? Well, here at Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister, we believe no reason is good enough for murder. But could that have been the thing that pushed Arthur Miller over the line? It's a possibility. Now, there's one more possibility, one more person. One more group of people. Well, there's two more groups of people. The first is the family of Johnny Hyde. Now, some folks may not know who Johnny Hyde is, and that's why we're going to explain this tonight, and why his family may have been responsible for murdering Marilyn Monroe. This is from page 30 of the book. Johnny Hyde was then the executive vice president of the William Morris Agency. Now, Johnny Hyde saw these nude calendar photos long before anyone else, while he was just scouting models, scouting agents. These photos that we talked about before, the things that jump-started Marilyn's career. He saw these photos, and he became absolutely obsessed with Marilyn Monroe. He was so completely flipped out in love with her that he divorced his wife and left his 4 kids in an effort to get Marilyn to marry him. Now, he was her very first agent, and she never said no to him, but she never said yes either. It was Hyde who started her career really moving. He got William Morris to buy her contract for better roles. The Asphalt Jungle, All About Eve. As a result of her role in All About Eve, 20th Century signed her on again, and this time to a 7-year contract. Marilyn lived with Hyde to the day that he dropped dead of a heart attack. This woman, didn't even commit to marrying her agent, a man who left his wife and kids to be with her. He asked her to marry him, and she never said no, but she never said yes. She strung him along, and would this family, this wife and her 4 kids left scorned because Marilyn couldn't say no to a guy, but she couldn't say yes, and in essence destroyed this family? Would this family not seek out vengeance upon Marilyn Monroe? Years later, 4 kids, 1 wife, that's 5 more people in the list. The Hyde family, and the last group, the extraterrestrials, as we talked about Marilyn, a cosmic woman. A cosmic woman with psychic musk. Was she out of this world? Was she trying to get extraterrestrials? Was she part of that lineage? A special, superpowered extraterrestrial race, and she was ready to blow it all for fame. To say, I deserve better roles. I'm from out of this world. Could the extraterrestrials have put a stop to that before it was too late? Before she exposed their existence to the whole world? That's what we're going to find out as we go through all 4 parts of Who Killed Marilyn. That will not, next week we'll return to normal programming. Our normal show, Strange Times Indeed, with Cliff McCallister, right here as it always is, but we'll be talking the paranormal, the extraterrestrial, the unexplained. We'll take your calls to hear about what you think happened, or to hear about what you witnessed. And then the week after that, we'll be back here with part 2 of Who Killed Marilyn. We're going to be exploring chapters 3 and 4. And to get you hooked, here's the name of those chapters. Chapter 3, Marilyn and the Kennedys, and Chapter 4, Bobby's Second Thought. So it seems things might be swaying closer towards the Kennedys when we think about who killed Marilyn. The Kennedys, Joe DiMaggio, Arthur Miller, the family of Johnny Hyde, or the extraterrestrials from which she evolved from. There's a question in the chat. Was Death of a Salesman originally titled Death of a Sex Symbol? Who's to say? Now there we go. That's the information. That could be a point to murder. Arthur Miller did write about death. Could he have written about it because he killed Marilyn Monroe? We'll discuss that again in 2 weeks. Join us next week here on twitch.tv/MechComedyNight. And as always, we are sponsored by the Marilyn Ensemble Theater. We are dedicated to them because they have the guts to put this show on the air. We said some pretty gutsy stuff tonight. And I think some normal TV stations probably wouldn't let us on the air, but here we are, telling our truth to the world. And the Marilyn Ensemble Theater has the guts to put us on the air, so be sure to support them with a donation to MarilynEnsemble.org/donate. And check out their new project, Victory is Within Our Grasp, a 4-part series, a bi-weekly 4-part series. I wonder where they got that idea. To share historic monologues from the women's suffrage movement. Victory was within our grasp. That's going to be at MarilynEnsemble.org/victory. Each episode is $6, so you can support them there. Now, of course, we did talk a lot about death tonight. We talked about some troubling things, and so we'd like to go out on a point, because while we explore this true crime stuff, just as we do with everything, as we do with extraterrestrials, with paranormal, with the supernatural, we respect the subject here. And we understand there's a certain reverence that comes with talking about true crime. That understanding that these are true people who truly lived and were truly crimed. And we just want to say that we take this thing respectfully when we talk about Marilyn Monroe. And so before we close, there's one last thing we have to do. So for those of you at home, we need you to light a candle. If you've got a candle at home, light up your candle. Go ahead, pull that up, get yourself ready. We're going to take a moment to respect this great woman, a moment to remember Marilyn Monroe, as she ought to be remembered, as we should all reflect back on her life and think about. So those of you at home, get your candles out. If you might want to post this on the Instagram, and remember, follow us Strange Times Indeed on Instagram. I've been reading each chapter from these books on Instagram Live there, so you can join me for that as we do it, and then you won't have to find your own copy to join in next week. But let's take a deep breath. Breathe in. Look at the candles. Really take in Marilyn Monroe and how she was so wronged, but how together we can make things right. Goodbye, Norma Jean. Though I never knew you at all, it's clear you didn't kill yourself. Look at the timing of the cause. They found you around midnight, and they covered up the crime. They dressed you up like a suicide, and they cleared the Kennedy name. And it seems to me you lived your life till you were murdered in your bed, never knowing who killed you when the drugs set in. And I know we'll solve your murder before we reach the end. A 4-part series on Strange Times Indeed. Who killed Marilyn? Loneliness is tough. Sergeant Clements, the only cop who claimed it looked like a murder and that the scene was arranged. And even when you died, the poor dumb blonde myth haunted you, but you were playing dumb when you took those photos in the nude. And it seems to me you lived your life till you were murdered in your bed. Was it Arthur Miller, the Catholic Church, or Bobby Kennedy's kids? And I know we'll solve this crime before we reach the end. This 4-part series on Strange Times Indeed. Who killed Marilyn? Goodbye, Norma Jean. Though I never knew you at all, it's clear you didn't kill yourself. Well, look at the timing of the cause. Goodbye, Norma Jean. They treated you like Velma without brains, a Hollywood sex machine for the first lady in your dreams. And it seems to me you lived your life till you were murdered in your bed, never knowing who would kill you when the drugs set in. And I know we'll solve your murder before we reach the end. This 4-part series on Strange Times Indeed. Who killed Marilyn? A 4-part series on Strange Times Indeed. Who killed Marilyn? Stay strange, terrestrials.